Grace and peace, family. I hope everybody's doing good this morning. I want to come on with a topic. It's actually a tool that I use very frequently with my young clients, but mainly with a lot of the adult clients, and it's to really get the ball rolling. The technique I use is called trauma sorting. Now, it is the process of identifying your traumas and the trauma responses you have to them so that you can figure out which trauma responses are causing limitations when it comes to your development. Now, this is a whole process, so it takes a few weeks to really dive deep into what you're sorting through, because you're going to come up with a few. There may even be some things that you don't even deem traumas, but they still are affecting you in different ways. Now, I personally feel like the best way to do trauma sorting is between the ages of 13 and 20. And the reason is because it actually gets to the traumas before they become so deeply ingrained that you start to really develop the responses. And the responses is really where the biggest problem is, because when you don't sort the actual trauma, when you just leave a trauma unchecked and it's just lingering there, the mind knows exactly what to do. So it's naturally going to protect you. And that gets me into my why. Why is trauma sorting something that can be extremely helpful? Now, like I said, because the brain naturally wants to protect you. When you go through an experience that is less than favorable and you don't actually look at what you dealt with, the brain will come up with ways to protect you. So we can go with the example of making bad decisions when you're young, right? Now, of course, the decisions aren't necessarily bad. The problem is the mind state you're in when you make those decisions will cause you to make decisions that actually are not working in your favor, hence negative outcome. Now, let's say you did that a lot in your youth, and it was because you were experimenting, you were finding yourself, whatever the reason. And now you got to a point where you've made enough negative decisions that you no longer want to do it, and it's become a negative attribute in your life. Naturally, if you don't look at the fact that you've gone through that process, you may attribute the fact that you made those bad decisions with peers. Maybe it was peer pressure. Maybe it was wanting to feel accepted that caused that. Now, when you get into the real world, you're speaking with other adults. Anytime someone gives you their opinion on something, or they try to give you a suggestion as what you can do for yourself, you may not ever want to take it, because you remember that attributed to you making bad decisions in the past. Hence, a limitation and a boundary that could be hindering your growth. On a whole other spectrum with the same situation, you may develop the inability to trust yourself in decision-making situations, which causes delays. It causes a lack of trust within you. So when those times come up, you can't actually make a decision, or you don't want to make a decision, or you let decisions be made for you. That is a serious limitation, because as you start looking for careers and you're developing into who you are, you need to be able to be assertive with who you are and know what you need and where you're going. So making sure that you really look at the trauma and identify how it can be a hindrance and a handicap to the mind state will allow you to be able to push forward. Another reason why you really don't want this is because those boundaries that are working against you will show up in other relationships. So as you develop, let's say you become an adult, you still have the issue with the fact that you made bad decisions when you were a child. You may project that on your own children. And because they're now at that age where you were making all those decisions that didn't make sense, you assume they're going to. So you limit their ability for self-expression, or even their ability to understand who they are. Maybe you don't even want to talk about your situations, which can help them grow. So all of these can negatively affect you. Now, the process to conduct trauma sorting it's an in-depth one. So it's one that you really need to sit down and write and give yourself time to understand, like, why you were thinking the way you were. Even those thought process came from somewhere. So maybe some of the trauma that you actually have, the trauma responses that you've actually come up with, came from the fact that you saw those same responses in family members and in your parents. So you use the same ones, not knowing that now it's just becoming a generational curse, and it needs to stop at some point. So what you really want to do is you want to evaluate and list the experiences that made you feel like you had no control or victimized. Once you have the list, you can go into your second stage, which is coming up with ways that you could have prevented it. So any way that you could have. If you were a child and there was no way, come up with a way that you think you could have prevented that from happening to you. And how you actively prevent it from happening to you now. So with the same example of making bad decisions, maybe you had too much freedom as a child and you were able to make decisions that just didn't serve you, or maybe you didn't have guidance. Understanding that these played a factor into your poor decision making and accepting that that's how this process actually happened will allow you to maybe come up with ways on how you do this now. Oh, because I went through that, that's the reason why I don't like to make decisions. And how I avoid that is I don't put myself in positions where I'd have to decide for myself. Now, once you have the understanding of how you could have prevented it as a kid, even if you couldn't have, and how you actively prevent it on a daily basis, the last part is, are you doing that thing that is the active way to prevent it? Some may say yes, and some may say no. And if it's a no, then write down what you are doing, and then you'll come back to this question. You're doing the thing. The next thing is it positively adding to you? Now that is the last question, and you're going to do this for each and every trauma. Is this actively, positively adding to me? This is one of the best ways to really get to know yourself, but to also understand your traumas and accept the fact that it is not a part of you as a person. You don't wear your scars on you and celebrate the fact that you've been hurt just to be able to say it. You look at the scars, you recognize that they are a part of the beautiful mosaic that is you, and you understand that those traumas were not supposed to happen, but since they did, I was made better in these areas. Whether the poor decision making helped you live enough of a lifestyle that you could help your children understand where the decisions can take them, or even not being able to make decisions, understanding that you had to relearn how to trust where you were going. Either way, you're getting to know yourself on a deeper level, and deepest levels of shadow work, it's what allows your heart space to heal, to open up, and even accept God, because He cannot live in a space that is tainted with negativity. So until you start purging the things that no longer deserve to live with you and accepting the things that are conducive to your growth, you will remain stuck. I'm gonna leave this here. Feel free to comment, because I love talking about this by all means. So go ahead, do your thing, and I hope you have a very blessed and productive day. Love and light, and peace.